There's a brewing showdown right here in the U.S. between the feds and state governments over refugees as concerns are ramping up about homeland security. Take a look at this map. More than half of our nation's governors are saying they don't want Syrian refugees resettling in their states. This as the House overwhelmingly approves a bill this week insisting on tighter background checks before any refugees are allowed in. It's an effort to block terrorists who may be posing as refugees. But today, Vice President Joe Biden blasting those moves.
Unlike in Europe, refugees don't set foot in the United States until they are thoroughly vetted. Let's also remember who the vast majority of these refugees are. Women, children, orphans, survivors of torture, people desperately in need of medical help.
Meanwhile, the state of Texas now taking a more aggressive step to block the federal government's refugee program from moving ahead in that state. Joining us now with more on why he believes opening the door to these refugees remains a security threat. I'd like to welcome Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Welcome, sir. Great to have you on the program today.
Thank you, Uma.
You've taken definitive action this week demanding that 19 aid agencies immediately stop Syrian refugee resettlement plans. This follows your declaration that Texas will bar the acceptance of Syrian refugees right now. Do you expect that these nonprofit groups, they're going to cooperate? And if they don't, what steps could you take to force consequences against those agencies?
Well, Uma, these nonprofit groups obviously are very caring and work hard to help those who are in need. The problem these nonprofit groups have dovetails with the frustration that Americans have, and that is the conflicting information that we are receiving from Washington, D.C., and it goes to that clip that you showed about Vice President Biden. We have the politicians such as Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton saying one thing, and we have national intelligence leaders like the Director of National Intelligence, the Director of the FBI, the Director of Homeland Security saying something else. What the national intelligence leaders are telling us is that Syrian refugees could be embedded with those who are ISIS terrorists. And it's our responsibility for me as governor of the state of Texas, but for all leaders in this nation to ensure that we put national security and the security of our fellow Americans first.
So your directive was first sent to the commissioner of your Texas Health and Human Services commissioner, who said that his agency would cooperate and reserves the right to refuse to cooperate with any resettlement efforts. But as I understand it, groups like Catholic Charities are saying that it will continue to serve all refugees. Could you cut off federal funding that passes through Texas to local agencies? And are you concerned that this could lead to a legal showdown?
Uma, I think if we have the opportunity to sit down and visit with everyone about this situation, we know that we have information that these charity groups simply don't have. I believe that these charity groups have fallen victim to the misinformation that's being provided by the Obama administration. What I want the charity groups to understand is exactly what the national intelligence leaders have said, and that is ISIS members could be infiltrating in with the Syrian refugees. And I believe that the charity groups will agree with us, that they don't want to be a part of a program that attracts ISIS warriors amongst Syrian refugees.
You know, you pointed out that the FBI director said that we cannot truly vet all of these refugees because there isn't really credible data. There's no database in Syria, for example, to get a handle on these people. Yet we keep hearing, as you point out from the White House, about stringent efforts that will be implemented to do those thorough background checks. But in reality, sir, aren't there going to be remaining big gaps of information about an individual and that those gaps may never be answered? So when people accuse you and other governors about taking a firm stand against the resettlement of these refugees, of stoking fear and bigotry, how do you respond to that?
Several things, Zuma. One is, as both the FBI and national intelligence have been able to establish, they have been able to narrow the gaps of information with regard to Iraqis, but not with regard to Syrians. But secondly, the focus is going to be on ensuring that there is not going to be anyone allowed to cross our border into this state who poses a danger. Remember this, Uma, and that is that already just this year alone, there have been dozens of Syrians who have crossed the southern border in the state of Texas, who have gone throughout the state of Texas and maybe the United States of America. It's essential that this country get a control both of our border as well as know exactly who these Syrian refugees are, know whether or not they are connected to ISIS. We know for a fact from arrests we have made here in Texas that some are connected with ISIS. We've had shootouts here in Texas with members of ISIS. So this is a clear and present danger we are dealing with. The only way, Uma, we are going to solve this is if the president steps up and leads in two ways. One, these refugees can be protected the same way that President Bill Clinton did in Kosovo by establishing a refugee relocation center in Syria itself. But two, Uma, this is not going to be solved unless and until the United States leads in crushing ISIS to begin with.
Sir, let me interrupt you really quickly because I just have a few seconds left. Is it true, though, that when you and the other governors had a conference call with White House officials about this refugee program, that when you asked if you were going to be given background information that they may have on some of these individuals, that you were told that you would not be receiving this information from the White House? Why?
And Uma, you're correct. We were told from the White House they would not be providing us information. We were also told, the White House admitted they had failed to abide by the standards of this program by failing to provide states information about the refugees who have already been sent here. And so the White House has a lot of explaining to do.
All right, Governor, we thank you so much for joining us, and keep us posted on what develops over the next few weeks. We wish you all the best. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Uma.
Well, with the recent